terrifically twisted western tale accompanying a thoroughly entertaining tactical strategy game. Another one from my stack of summer sale purchases, this is Hard West, a turn-based strategy game in the same vein as XCOM. Unfortunately, I can't draw many comparisons as I haven't played the most recent incarnation. The main portion of the game takes place in tactical encounters which are fairly traditional grid and turn-based battles using cover and statistics to fight your way through, but there is also quite a heavy emphasis on the RPG element as you develop your character travelling between nodes on a much larger map. The general overarching story is one of misfortune, torment and revenge as you start out with your father travelling across the deserts, but after a series of chance encounters and unfortunate events, the situation quickly spirals out of control. Rather than having a campaign which carries you through the story from start to end, the entire game is split off into scenarios which you gradually unlock as you progress. This gives you a little bit more freedom in how the story is told as you can choose which path to go down first. In my opinion, the story is where all the magic lies. Each scenario has a series of comic book style sequences to introduce you, and the entire game is narrated by Death himself. It's very unusual in that there is a very definite main character, but you don't always play as him, and on occasions you're actually fighting against him. This almost gives you free reign over who the bad guys are and who the really bad guys are. This world doesn't really do good people. You get to make critical choices in who lives and dies, though a lot of these choices are contained within the scenarios, and there is a small amount of railroading just to make all of the stories tie up. Each of the scenarios also has several unlockable items and trinkets which can be bought on the other sequences once you've collected them. These are usually gathered by going slightly out of your way and doing some of the little side objectives which aren't necessary. The scenarios are all navigated over maps covered with nodes which are either encounters, shops or side quests. This section has similarities to games like FTL as you are given a situation and a selection of options which can result in fame and fortune, or horrific burns and curses. Ultimately you're making choices based on very little information and it can feel cruel at times as there is no consistent system to follow. If you make a good choice, bad things can happen. If you make a bad choice, good things can happen, and vice versa. These choices will presumably be a lot more critical on hardcore modes, but if you're playing it on normal, nothing will happen that is truly run-ending. Usually it'll be nothing more than a minor inconvenience which can be cured by paying the doctor. Another important factor for the scenarios is that each one has a different game mechanic which governs the RPG element, ranging from pretty basic food management and increasing your bounty, to others which are slightly more supernatural, like characters being able to see the future. All of these outside choices come into play when you're actually in the tactical encounters, with gun in hand fighting demons, cowboys, Indians and anyone else that shows up. This is where all the different statistics start to finally make sense. One of the most important governing abilities in the entire game is luck, which dictates whether you get hit or not, as this stops you from repeatedly missing characters over and over as you fight against your hit chance percentage. Obviously this can all be avoided if you get right into the face of your enemies and ensure that you get a 100% chance of hitting. The cover system dictates how much damage your shots will do, with each gun having a different statistic for damage, damage in cover, and damage in half cover. So although it reduces your chance of being hit, it also adds another layer of protection. The fights are all pretty varied, and get more complicated as the maps get bigger and start involving different floors of buildings, so you can't really develop a winning formula. You really need to play to the situation, especially if you're trying to pull all of your characters through. There are so many nooks and crannies with this game, as there are other elements like the card system which can provide extra bonuses if you create poker hands, but each card also has abilities which arm your character for specific scenarios. Little things which add so much more character and complexity without being overwhelming. The graphics are also generally pretty good. It's nothing that's going to blow your mind, but it fits well with the surroundings, and little additions like discoloration of the map to make it feel a little bit more authentic and dots of blood on the cards really add to the personality of the game overall. And this also continues through to the sounds. It's always satisfying to hear gunshots ricocheting off various objects before finally finding their target, all backed with a great western soundtrack. And on top of all of this, it doesn't even skimp when it comes to content. It took me a little over 17 hours to complete all of the scenarios, and there is ample room to play back through some of them, and pick up the collectibles I missed, try the choices I avoided, and attempt a harder skill setting. As you can probably guess, I enjoyed Hard West thoroughly, and would recommend it to anyone. As I mentioned, I haven't really played XCOM as they're not usually my thing, but I feel a lot more inclined to try other tactical shooters now. Personally, I can't actually think of a negative to this game. Each element works well on its own, and when you bring it all together it takes it to another level. The supernatural western theme hooked me in, and the game just kept impressing me time after time.